Hello, welcome back. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge, Laborers Talk Radio, proud member of the Working Family Radio Network. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. And this program is supported in part by the Iron Workers Local Number 3 in Pittsburgh, PA, and the International Association of Machinists Lodge 1486 in Virginia. Thank you for your support. And you can support us as a listener by following us on Facebook and Twitter. In studio right now, we've got Charlie McAllister, retired professor from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Charlie, welcome back.
Good to be here.
Charlie, got a question for you. Today, driving in to the studio, saw a young man, recruiter for the United States Marine Corps. I was very surprised to see what he was driving. He had a government plate on the back of this car, and his car was a Hyundai.
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you, something's wrong here. There used to be a prohibition that the United States government would buy American-made cars, made famous by Lee Iacocca and the K car. We're not going
not
there.
One of our proudest moments.
Yeah, you know, but what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I mean, it's obviously it seems that we should keep governmental, taxpayer-funded
organizations and entities buying American-made products.
American-made products.
I just wanted to ask, you know, because
I heard you were people were irate about this.
Twitter and Facebook blew up on us on this one today, and we actually got a call from Nashville, Tennessee, about that. So we're thankful for that. But Charlie, you brought some guests in today.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things there are many things going on in Pittsburgh, thank God. There's a lot of lively activity. But one of the important struggles, I think, going on here is the struggle of adjunct professors, teachers at the area universities and community college. I was a teacher at IUP for 22 years, and we had when it was signed, we had the best union contract in the entire country. And so I benefited greatly from a system that was, very fair. We were protected. I had free speech. I had,
lived like a king. You had these ungodly wages.
Not about the ungodly wages at a public university, but I had all these wonderful graduate students who worked their butts off for me, and we paid them decently. We paid them as much as we could and did everything we could for them. But at any rate, what is so sad to see is the plight of new people coming out and going into academia. They're coming out with levels of debt which were 10 and 20 times what my generation came out with. So we didn't have to work that long to get rid of our debt. Most state universities were near free or very low tuition, and people could go. Even the private schools were relatively reasonable. But today, young people come out with huge debt. And then, if they want to go into teaching, they love the intellectual life in academia, they go out there and make incredibly poor salaries with no benefits.
Right. And let me carry this into you're a doctor. You have a PhD. My wife just got her master's degree. She's in early elementary education. And, it is incredible to me that we'll pay $50 for somebody an hour for somebody to mow our lawn or fix our car. But when it comes to teachers, no, forget it. And that from K through 12,
right,
community colleges, universities, I don't get it. And if you take a look at a new teacher in the K through 12 with a master's degree, what they make versus somebody walking out with an MBA, it's a world of difference. I mean, it's 2-3 times as high with the MBA.
And yet you don't hear the talk radio giants like Rush and others, beating up MBA people. You hear them beating up on teachers, and right. I think that's boomeranging on the right wing. I think people all over the country are saying, there was a few bad teachers, but by and large, there were teachers that I loved, that I learned from, and so I think the reaction is actually moving in the direction of sympathy for teachers and their plight. But I think one of the great holes there is that we don't understand what's happening in our universities and how there's this incredibly dangerous and difficult two-tier system where you have tenure track, which is shrinking, and you have temporary faculty, which are carrying the load. Meanwhile, the cost of education is going up constantly.
Right. And today in studio we have Robin Sowards, who is a PhD, and also Josh Zelensnik. Did I get that right, Josh? Zelensnik. I apologize for that. And guys, you are adjunct professors. You're teaching. You're getting out there and doing it. Ron?
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
I'm an adjunct faculty member at Duquesne University, and along with my colleague Josh here, we've been organizing a union for adjunct faculty.
I like it. Tell me more. Organizing is a good thing. What are some of the things that made you decide that you wanted a union? And by the way, it's with United Steelworkers.
Yes, that's right. The United Steelworkers have been enormously supportive. Our concerns were, in part, the enormously heavy reliance of the university on part-time faculty. We're about 51% of the faculty in the university, so the majority of faculty are part-time. And a significant portion of the courses are also taught by graduate students. So tenure stream faculty are teaching only maybe 40% of the courses. And that means that students and parents who are paying quite a lot to go there are simply not getting as good an education, not because adjunct faculty or graduate students don't work hard. The people I know work enormously hard. But just because they're not given adequate institutional support.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes,
in any one of your given classes, ballpark, how many students you have in one of your classes?
I mean, different adjuncts teach different subjects, and they're designed a little differently. Josh and I both teach first-year composition to freshmen, for example. And in those classes, because we read all their papers and read drafts of the papers and annotate them in detail and talk with each student one-on-one about their writing, those classes are enormously time-intensive for each individual student. So the class sizes are 22 students at present. But
22 students. And ballpark what a year's tuition at Duquesne is right now?
A little over 40 grand, is that right?
Cha-ching. Okay.
Between 30 and 40 grand, yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so it's up there pretty good. And
basically, one student in that class pays our salary. Our salary is $3,000 for a single course. So out of those 22 students, one of them pays for us, and the other 21 are paying for something that's not faculty and not necessarily devoted to instruction.
And let me ask you this: given the size of the class and the intensity of the work involved, if you had to ballpark the hours that you're putting into each semester, what would that be?
I'm kind of particular about this sort of thing, so I clock all my hours and everything I do just to sort of stay efficient. But this means that I have a pretty precise idea, and normally during the school year I'm working, 60 or 70 hours a week. And that's pretty typical. Most people have to have multiple jobs in order to survive, so they'll teach the maximum number of classes they can, say, at Duquesne, but they'll also teach at CCAC, and they'll also teach at Point Park. We've got colleagues that teach 8 courses a semester, which in higher education is an unheard of, absurd course load.
12-week course?
Yeah, or
12
15, yeah.
Okay, so we're talking north of 750 hours, and you're doing this for $3,000.
Correct.
Okay. Let's think about that for a second, folks. $3,000 for over 750 hours worth of work. Do the math. It's not that hard. Do we have any math majors out there? This is very interesting. My goodness. Listen, guys, leaving on that, I want people to think about that. Leaving on that thought, we're going to take a short break, pay some bills, and support some friends. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge, Labor's Talk Radio, sponsored in part by the United Steelworkers of America and the Communication Workers of America, Washington, D.C. Hello, welcome back. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge, Labor's Talk Radio. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it, and we appreciate your support, so please do us a favor. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just type in The Union Edge. And for all the people who have done that, we thank you very much. For those people who have not done it, we're going to keep on saying it until you do. So just surrender now. Facebook, Twitter, Just type in The Union Edge. This program is sponsored in part by the Fairfax County Federation of Teachers and the D.C. Building Trades. Thank you for that. In studio right now, we have Charlie McCullister, retired professor from Indiana University of Pennsylvania. Also, Joshua Zelensnik, who is with Pitt and Duquesne as an adjunct professor, and Robin Sowards, who is a PhD and also an adjunct professor with Duquesne University. And you guys are members of the United Steelworkers. You know?
Right.
Yeah, members of the United Steelworkers. We signed cards last year around this time in April, and we presented cards to the administration. And the administration, we signed a stipulated agreement with the administration. They didn't recognize us voluntarily at the time, and we had an election through the NLRB, National Labor Relations Board, and
You won?
we ended up winning the election, yes. But in the meantime, the administration, they reneged on a contract that they signed with us.
Citing which reasons?
The reasons were that they're a Catholic affiliated school and that they do not have to recognize a union.
Charlie, I've never seen any case law like that. Have you? I've seen religious instructors, teachers, men and women of the cloth. Not that was up for debate. Not the secular.
Well, I mean, I think this is a battle that's going on in the country where people, right wing, is trying to extend religious exemptions on all kinds of levels. So I think it's really a concerted push.
I have a religious reason why I shouldn't pay taxes. Oh, wait a second. Somebody else thought of that before me. Damn it. But Duquesne University has a number of unions on site. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, it's especially shocking for a Catholic university in particular. It's possible maybe if your religion is Scientology, your religion would direct you to be anti-union, but Catholicism is simply...
They endorse protecting workers and unions, and the Catholic Church has come out in favor of unions.
Here's what the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said, and this is a direct quote.
And wait a second, before we get into that a little bit deeper.
Just one sentence, but...
Yeah, explain who those folks are.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is the sort of main organizational unit of the Catholic Church's hierarchy in the United States. So this is an official statement by kind of the U.S. branch of the Catholic Church.
Kind of like the leadership of the
Correct.
Catholic Church here in the United States, and I'm very interested to hear this again.
So what they say is, quote, "The Church fully supports the rights of workers to form unions or other associations to secure their rights to fair wages and working conditions. No one may deny the right to organize without attacking human dignity itself."
So at that point, somebody said, we're not those type of Catholics, we're a different kind of Catholics, or what's going on with this? I'm being facetious, and Father Jack O'Malley, I apologize, please. So the Catholic Church basically, Duquesne basically, from what I understand, lawyered up. They got themselves and, well, some may describe an anti-union law firm or group of individuals to come in and promulgate this, or attempt to promulgate this, exemption despite what the church says.
They had a local lawyer who was a very reasonable guy, and that's who we originally made a very amicable set of agreements with. But 3 weeks later, they hired this union buster out of Memphis, a guy named Arnold Pearl. And he's been the one producing all of these briefs in defense of this supposed religious exemption from U.S. labor law.
Very interesting.
And, when you look at the history of Duquesne, and Monsignor Charles Owen Rice is one of their 100 most prestigious, when they had their 100th anniversary, he was a highly honored alumnus. And he was the labor priest and fought, vigorously for union rights on many, many picket lines. And it's really rather tragic to see Duquesne taking a position like this about unionization of its own people.
I agree, and I find it troubling that the church can come out so very strongly for working families, and others will try and pervert that. It's troubling. So right now, where is it at with the United Steelworkers and Duquesne?
NLRB, yeah.
NLRB?
Well, right now, it's held up in court with the National Labor Relations Board. We're waiting for the national board in D.C. to see our case. Something happened recently too in the last couple of weeks, where Obama's recess appointments from December of 2011. I guess this came up with the D.C. Circuit Court, and
everything right now, basically, with the NLRB is on hold because of that that question. And that's going to be going on for a little bit.
Which is rooted in the obstructionism of the Republicans in Congress, who just will not approve and will block at every turn appointments made by the president, especially for the Labor Board, which they particularly hate.
Mm-hmm. And Charlie, many of our Republican friends are Catholic. How do they? Maybe you've got a good answer for that. I don't know, but quite frankly, so you guys are kind of in limbo with this right now, legal. So what is going on? What's you're still working. What did you get in that initial agreement with Duquesne, and are they honoring that at all, or?
Well, the agreement was just to hold the election, and they stipulated to the jurisdiction of the NLRB, which a few weeks later they went on to deny. So to some extent, that legal stuff is all in the hands of the lawyers. But as far as we're concerned, we already are a union.
Right, concerted activity.
Exactly. Well, and we won an election, and we won by an 85% margin. That's better than any U.S. president you can pick.
Did the 15% not get the memo?
15% are our brothers and sisters who we will hope to bring around to the right way of thinking. But what we're doing right now is creating the structures that a union normally creates, building a grievance process, going department by department, working with chairs and tenure stream faculty to build the infrastructure to improve our working conditions directly. We're not planning on waiting on the courts to make a decision. We are a union now, and we will be here to stay.
Good job, Robin. Very quickly, the tenured professors working at Duquesne. What I am sure that you've had conversations with them. What did they say?
They've been enormously supportive. I think they all recognize that all of us are faculty, and all of us have a responsibility to the students and to the mission of the university to make sure that every faculty member has adequate institutional support to do their job. So they're on board.
And let me ask you this: is some of our Professor Walter Brash very astutely said, universities are making widgets. We just call them students. What are your students, your customers saying? Yeah. What are your students and customers saying about this whole process? Are they being supportive?
Absolutely. I think a lot of them don't necessarily know about it, but the ones that know that I've talked to are generally not only supportive, but just outright shocked. I mean, they're not necessarily from the first aware of all these academic hierarchies and so on, and they just don't realize how poorly supported a lot of their professors are, and often the ones that take the most time with them and know them personally, because they'll teach smaller courses rather than big lectures.
Guys, listen, we got to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this some more. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge, Laborers Talk Radio, supported in part by Laborers Local 373 in Pittsburgh, PA, and also the Ironworkers Local number 3, Pittsburgh, PA. Hello, welcome back. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge, Laborers Talk Radio. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we appreciate your support by following us on Facebook and Twitter. Just type in The Union Edge. We ask you to do that because it helps us get on more radio stations. And if we're on more radio stations, we can talk to more people. We appreciate that very much. Also, additionally, this program is supported in part by the Bricklayers and Allied Crafts Local number 9, Pittsburgh, PA, and the Utility Workers Union of America Local 102, also of Pittsburgh, PA. In studio today, we've got Charlie McCullister, professor retired from Indiana University of Pennsylvania, Robin Soward, PhD and professor, adjunct professor, member of the United Steelworkers, and also Joshua
Selesnik.
Selesnik.
Taking my work, man. Taking my work.
Yeah, but you were...
Yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to be nice and make sure that I pronounce... Josh Z, also. There we go.
Perfect.
Didn't know you were a DJ on the weekends for the. Oh, okay. But guys, you're both adjunct professors here in the Greater Pittsburgh area. Duquesne University has been fighting you on this a little bit, even though they have other unions within the organization. You're not. You're not teaching religion.
Correct.
Although there may be some come to Jesus meetings with some of these papers that you get, but you're not teaching religion. And Duquesne is not the only place where we're running into these problems with the adjunct professors becoming United Steelworkers. What else is going on?
Well, among other things, the emergence of the Affordable Care Act has got a lot of universities sort of revising the limits on how much adjuncts can teach. As of January 1st of next year, if you have employees that work more than 30 hours a week, which is how the government defines full-time for the purposes of that act, they have to offer you health care. They don't have to subsidize it. It doesn't have to be free, but they've got to offer you the ability to get it. And in order to avoid doing that, in other words, what the Affordable Care Act is supposed to accomplish, what CCAC has done is to reduce the amount of courses that people can teach, to keep them ostensibly under the 30 hours so that they don't have to give them health care.
If I can just add something to that, I think at CCAC it dropped from 5 classes to 4 classes, and I teach 4 classes right now, and I can attest to what Robin said earlier about 60 to 70 hours a week, especially when student papers are due and spending all weekend grading papers. If you're teaching 4 classes or 4 classes, that's way over 30 hours a week. And that they're only accounting for
Actual
in the
class,
classroom
yeah.
activity. You have to plan classes. You have to comment on students' work. You have to meet with students.
And quite frankly, there is case law out there about that type of thing. You know, and going back, I have friends who work in the Bureau of Prisons, and it used to be that, you know, you would go into the facility and you would work your way through all the security systems in the facility, and you would have to be out on a tier to actually exchange keys, and they called it key time, and they weren't paid for it. Law enforcement officers, arming and disarming time, so on and so forth. So there's case law out there that should recognize that somewhere along the lines, because no, you're not just teaching a 1-hour class 3 times or 4 times. And I am still shocked. You know, you're talking about north of 750 hours per one of the classes that you're teaching for $3,000. That's $4 an hour. I mean, do parents really want the professors teaching their kids when they're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year for these courses to be taught by professors, adjunct professors that are making $4 an hour per course? I mean, really? You know, we've talked about the tenured track professors. They understand it. They get it. They're being supportive. The students are being supportive. What are you hearing from the moms and dads that are paying the bills?
So far, not much, but it would certainly be great to hear more. I mean, the university, especially Duquesne, is highly tuition dependent. About 80% of their budget comes from tuition. So families out there should, certainly be invested in their students' education, as I'm sure they are. And if the university starts hearing from those people who are actually sending in the checks, that makes an enormous difference. You know, we can appeal to their moral sensibilities, and maybe that can have some effect, but the bottom line talks loud.
Well, no, but let me turn this around as a father of a 13-year-old, okay? If I'm going to be dropping the house on my 13-year-old's college tuition, I don't want you having to teach at 3-4 different places, doing nutso work and being married to an educational professional. I know what paper grading time looks like, and I know the condition that my dear darling wife is in when she's doing that kind of stuff. I don't want my kids, when I'm paying that kind of money, being taught by people that look like my wife on a weekend when she's got, and you're doing it with 4 classes or more? Really?
It's crazy. Mm-hmm. It really, I mean, the modern academic, these folks, well, I guess you've worked at several at the same time. I mean,
Yes.
a good friend of mine, we used to always say he was the symbol of the modern academic. He was working 3 different colleges and universities, making $30,000 a year and no health care, and teaching 5 courses at 3 different universities. It's an incredible amount of work, especially if they're all different courses. You're not just teaching the same course.
You know, I don't want you giving my kid a pass because you're B. I want his papers done right and graded right.
Right,
Well,
and commented on. I mean, that's a part of the thing, and meeting with people is so important.
And maintaining those academic standards is pretty difficult if you're only hired for 1 semester at a time. Even if you've been there, and we've got colleagues that have been there 25 years, they basically have to reapply for their job every semester. And if you're primarily evaluated on student evaluations, that creates a big incentive for you to give the kid an A even if he doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, nobody
you know.
complains if the kid gets an A, except for
exactly.
the employer down the road.
Where the kid doesn't actually learn
Right,
material.
right.
Exactly.
You know, oh.
No, and this is part of the problem of grade inflation that people, and which is a real phenomena because the teachers are, I mean, the one place where student evaluations hurt is the teacher. I mean, and when they go for tenure, if they even have such an animal anymore, it's gradually being phased out. But those things count really heavily, can count against you if people in power want them to.
I just want to add, just because it can get kind of dangerous to think of, you know, the adjunct professors, you know, inflating grades to kind of make sure they get good student evaluations, because, you know, we do work so hard and we do try to maintain rigorous standards in the classroom too. And I would say most adjunct professors are doing this. They're you know, PhDs, creative writers, trying to organize these great classes and really being squeezed.
Sure.
So,
But it's
I just
it's
want to,
just
you know,
the pressure. No,
but yes, this is
absolutely.
a
People wanna
trend
do
all
what's
over
right,
higher
but-
ed, right?
Let me ask you this. You guys are both in composition and literary. What about our math teachers or science teachers or professors, adjunct professors? Are they engineering professors? Are they running into the same thing?
Of course. And they even have more students than we have. I think depending on which department, they may have 40 students. They may have more than that. I'm sure. I don't know about with math, but I know with history classes and science classes, they're assigned papers and they have to, you know, professors have to grade them too. Grading that many tests, it's very time consuming.
Josh, let me ask you this. We got about 2 minutes left in this segment. What do you want to say to the parents of the students?
I think that the parents should be outraged about this. I think, and I don't know if they're just not catching up on it in the media. Maybe the media is not covering it well enough. Let's hope that this show gets out there and
we try.
And parents get to listen to this. But I want to say, do you want your students being taught by workers that are severely underpaid, no access to health care, these
Running
semester
around.
by semester contracts, and we're teaching your students how to think and write?
Right.
You know,
and
this is,
additionally,
ridiculous.
not only are you doing this at just one institution of higher learning, maybe not higher management, but higher learning, but you're doing this at 2 or 3 oftentimes, trying to make it so you can feed your families. But that's got to have a huge impact on your health and your ability to maintain your families too. Guys, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about this and some other things. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge Laborers Talk Radio, sponsored in part by the International Association of Machinists Lodge 1486 and the Insulators, Local Number 2, Pittsburgh, PA. Hello, welcome back. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge Laborers Talk Radio, sponsored in part by the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 5, and the Operating Engineers, Local 66, Pittsburgh, PA. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. Hey, folks, go to our website, theunionedge.com. That's theunionedge.com. Sign up for our newsletter, and we'll make sure that you get the best and latest breaking news about labor. And right now in studio, we have Charlie McAllister, professor from Indiana University, retired, and Joshua Zelensnik, professor, adjunct professor, and also Robin Soward, who's an adjunct professor here in the greater Pittsburgh area. Guys, welcome back to the program.
Good to be here.
Thanks a lot.
Students really call you Jay-Z?
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Charlie, there's been some stuff going on recently with the adjunct professors. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, I was just there's some things going on, I think, with students and with people getting active on campuses. And just one thing I thought we should mention, because we've had Charlie Kernigan on our program recently, who's very involved with labor rights all over the world. Students at Pitt have been pushing Pitt on issues of university apparel and where it's manufactured. And this had been very hot a few years ago, kind of died off, but it's come back really strong. And they're really focusing on what Charlie Kernigan talked about, is these phony kind of licensor agencies that say everything's good. The one that Pitt uses, Fair Labor Association, paid for by the manufacturers. And the students are saying, we want an independent agency that really looks at these things in a correct fashion, the Workers' Rights Consortium. And 25 organizations at Pitt signed a letter to Chancellor Mark Nordenberg demanding that Pitt consider these issues and choose the Workers' Rights Consortium.
And this is very good and very admirable, but I think we're missing a step here. University of Pittsburgh, you're in Pittsburgh, you're in the United States, taxpayer base pays for you guys. Guess what? Buy American. Thank you very much.
And then we also have some very interesting organizing coming up in terms of this whole adjunct situation, which really needs to be addressed.
Robin, what's going on there?
Well, among other things, if you're an adjunct in the area and you're interested in organizing with us, the Adjunct Faculty Association of the United Steelworkers, take a gander at our website, which is www.adjunctfacultyassoc.org. But we also have a couple of events coming up. One is next Wednesday, March 6th at 6 o'clock at the Carnegie Library in Squirrel Hill, Meeting Room B. We're having a meeting about this Affordable Care Act business. In particular, we want to get input from adjuncts and also community members, other contingent workers about this issue, because the IRS has solicited input on how working hours should be calculated for adjunct faculty. And this is going to have effects for full-time faculty. It's going to have effects for other contingent workers. How do we define exactly what counts as a certain number of hours of work? And so we're hoping to get input from a wide array of concerned people in Pittsburgh, adjuncts and community people, about what we should recommend. The Adjunct Faculty Association will be making specific proposals to the IRS, and we'd like those proposals to reflect people's views of how these things should be. So March 6th at Carnegie Library in Squirrel Hill.
Okay, and also from April 5th to April 7th, this coming up soon, we're going to be holding a conference called Counter and Contingency, Teaching Scholarship and Creativity in the Age of the Adjunct. This is going to be held at the United Steelworkers building downtown. At this conference, there is going to be panels of adjunct faculty speaking about labor conditions. There are going to be a panel with administrators talking about the practices that they have to kind of go through as administrators hiring adjunct faculty. There's going to be a historical perspective of adjunct labor and worker rights in general. Robin, do you want to add anything else to that?
There's a lot of stuff. Most of the panels are going to be from adjuncts from various places all over the country, but also a lot of folks from the region who are doing a lot of interesting work and talking about the ways in which this contingent employment situation affects their ability to do their jobs. And all this information, again, you can get on our website.
And give us the website one more time.
It's www.adjunctfacultyassoc.org.
Fantastic. Guys, I want to reiterate, and Robin, I want to give you an opportunity to talk about this. We got about 4 minutes left. speak directly to the moms and dads that are out there and tell them, what you're up against and why this is so important.
Well, imagine you go to see your family physician. And you go to your doctor's office, and you're paying your doctor a decent amount of money, but the person that you actually meet with is not the doctor, but it's a doctor's assistant. Let's say this doctor's assistant doesn't actually have a room to examine you in, so you're examined in the hall, standing there in your partial gown and so on. And that doctor has to work for, or that assistant has to work for several doctors in order to make a living, so, he or she is in a bit of a rush to examine you rather quickly, and has to sort of scamper off. That's the situation with college professors these days. The majority of us are on contingent appointments. Many people don't have access to basic things we need to do our jobs, like computers and appropriate office space and so on, places to meet in private with students to discuss problems with their work and so on. And these things decrease the value that you're getting out of universities with the very large sum of money you're paying. And as I say, this is not a situation in which you're completely at the mercy of these universities. You can, if you act collectively, if you all address them, you can make them do things differently. And all that parents need to do is to contact the universities and make clear what it is you want. That you want full-time faculty members that are properly supported and have the time and resources to teach your students and give them the education that they deserve.
Charlie, I'm going to finish up with you today. Retired professor. What are your thoughts?
Well, I just think it's tragic, what is happening to our young people. I mean, particularly, I guess, the debt load that young people are coming out of universities today. Prices just keep going up in higher education, and their indentured servitude is what we're looking at. And then they go into a situation where it would be one thing if they could go into the situation in academia and make enough money to pay off their debts in some reasonable time, but that's not true. So what we're doing is creating a terrible double bind here, where we're giving them debt on one hand, but not giving them the means to ever negotiate out of it. And that is slavery, indentured servitude. It is destructive of democracy. It's destructive of intellectual freedom, and it really needs to be addressed. And I give these two gentlemen a great deal of credit for what they've been doing and the articulate way that they are advancing this cause.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for all that you do for those men and women that you teach. It's very important, and we, again, can't thank you enough for doing the right thing, not only for them, but for our community as a whole. And Charlie, look forward to seeing you next Tuesday. I'm Charles Showalter. You've been listening to the Union Edge Labor's Talk Radio.